The following voices are AI generated. We hope you enjoy the video.
Hey, ladies and gentlemen, we got a couple of new things for you. This review will be our first wrestling review from the Attitude Era, back when WWE was WWF. Our previous reviews were from recent years, but now let's do something different.
We got our Adventure Era counterparts to review Armageddon 1999 with us. And boy, it's a big show. Yes, pun intended.
This event was requested for us to review, and I gotta say, having our adventure counterparts reviewing older wrestling events with us could give these videos a little history lesson, since they were around before we were in the games, just briefly.
Yeah, we were only in Sonic Heroes, and the Ruthless Aggression era was around when we first arrived, but then in 2005, you guys replaced us. Sure, we were upset initially, but we hung out with the others and watched wrestling non-stop since then.
I think it's because of Cream and Vanilla's calming tea that made us forget that you guys took our place when your shadow had his game. Pro wrestling kept us entertained, and it was amazing that year, but Eddie Guerrero passing away that year was the only other sad thing that happened to us in 2005.
WWF Armageddon 1999 was the final WWE event of not only 1999 itself, but pretty much the entire millennium, but also the first of the Armageddon events, which lasted until 2008.
It's also quite a strange time in the World Wrestling Federation. Stone Cold Steve Austin was kayfabe run over by a car, but in real life, he had to miss out 8 to 9 months to get neck surgery. And this marks the beginning of the McMahon-Helmsley regime due to Triple H and Stephanie McMahon being together.
Armageddon 1999 was a wild event, but it wasn't the best. However, in 2000, the World Wrestling Federation was at an all-time high in its storytelling later on. The tag team roster was getting better. Two notable newcomers, Kurt Angle and Rikishi, were getting the spotlight, and Chris Jericho began his record-breaking reign as Intercontinental Champion.
Now let's get to the event itself. The first match was a tag team battle royal to determine the #1 contenders for the tag team championships at the Royal Rumble. A lot of the teams were awesome, but the main teams that got attention were the Acolytes and the Hardy Boys.
They were the final two, but the Acolytes eliminated the Hardys to win and became the #1 contenders for the tag team titles. Although the Hardys didn't win, but they stole the hearts of many thanks to their match against the Dudleys later in the Royal Rumble show in a tables match.
Matt and Jeff Hardy were daredevils, but the Acolytes, who later became the APA, didn't even win the tag team titles at the Royal Rumble because the New Age Outlaws retained their titles in a short match. As for the Battle Royal itself, it's all right.
The second match is Kurt Angle versus Steve Blackman. It was a quick back-and-forth match, but Angle won by pinfall due to avoiding an enziguri kick that the Lethal Weapon was about to use. After the match, Steve Blackman attacked Kurt Angle with his nunchucks. I guess Steve Blackman could make a great ninja since he's already quick and tough.
Maybe if Kurt Angle was faster and a little more stealthy, he'd make a good ninja too. He won a gold medal with a broken freaking neck after all.
Oh, Lord! I don't know why, but we better skip this next match due to our Charmies being here. I know they're actually adults, but they're still childlike.
Wait, what happened in the next match? I want to watch it!
It's something we don't want to show on YouTube, and it's even too inappropriate to even talk about. Let's just say it involves something naughty that would never be done nowadays.
Can we at least know who won?
Hell no, skip to the next match.
Good! The next match is a tag team match between Crash and Hardcore Holly against Viscera and Rikishi. It's another filler match just to introduce the fans to Rikishi, despite the man himself having multiple gimmick changes in the past. And this one is his most popular.
Right as the match progressed, Viscera accidentally performed a spinning heel kick on Rikishi. Hardcore took advantage and pinned Rikishi to win the match. After the match ended, Rikishi argued with Viscera and confronted him for costing him the match. Rikishi proceeded to perform a big side kick on Viscera. As a result, both of them brawled with each other until being broken apart by several WWF referees.
Honestly, it was dumb having Rikishi losing one of his early matches. It would have been better just to have him with the tag team Too Cool right away, since Rikishi was meant to be the fun dancing man with the big butt.
The next match was for the WWF European Championship. For those of you all who aren't familiar, WWE used to have a European title in the late 90s and early 2000s. It was discontinued just as the ruthless aggression began.
The British Bulldog defended the title against Val Venus and D'Lo Brown. Before the match started, Bulldog was escorted to the ring by Mean Street Posse, but the referee Teddy Long removed them from ringside and sent them backstage. All three men battled each other throughout the match, performing several maneuvers on each other. In the end, Brown performed a lowdown on Bulldog and attempted to pin him. Venus climbed to the top rope and performed a money shot on both Brown and Bulldog. Vienis then pinned Bulldog to win the match and thus became the new European champion.
What's the matter, Vector? You can't say Venus? It rhymes with...
Anyway, a new champion was crowned, and it just so happened to be a flirty man who wants to be with all the ladies of Europe. Thank God he didn't last long with that belt.
Then the next match is a steel cage match between X-Pac and Kane. They used to be a tag team, but now they're rivals.
There were a couple of stipulations as well. X-Pac could win the match by pinfall, or submission, or escaping the cage, with both feet touching the floor. However, Kane could only win by pinfall or submission. X-Pac's D-Generation X teammates, New Age Outlaws, who are Billy Gunn and Road Dogg, interfered in the match on X-Pac's behalf and tossed chairs into the ring for X-Pac to use it. X-Pac took advantage and dominated the match with this advantage.
This caused Kane's valet Tori to interfere in the match. X-Pac performed an X-Factor on Tori. Kane eventually won the match by performing a tombstone piledriver on X-Pac.
Kane versus X-Pac was surprisingly the best match of the show so far because of its non-stop action, and it went on a little longer than most matches before, aside from the Tag Team Battle Royal.
Too bad their rivalry continued through most of 2000. But now let's move on to the next match, and it's Chyna defending her Intercontinental Championship against the wrestler rock star Chris Jericho.
Everyone in this channel loves Chris Jericho, but his rivalry with Chyna is one of the very few we don't look back at fondly, due to one segment where Jericho held her hostage and hitting her thumb with a hammer several times. It was a little too dark, even for the time.
Bizarrely, after their match, Jericho and Chyna went on to have an alliance, and then in 2000, Chyna betrayed Jericho because she returned her feelings for Eddie Guerrero, who was falling for her after WrestleMania.
As for the match itself, it was even between the two. As of this recording, Chyna is the only woman to be Intercontinental Champion. Jericho defeated Chyna by forcing her to submit to his submission maneuver, the Walls of Jericho. As a result, Jericho became the new Intercontinental Champion. After the match, Jericho was interviewed by Michael Cole backstage, where Chyna showed her respect to Jericho by shaking his hand and called him the better wrestler for that night, thus beginning their alliance.
Another thing we want to bring up about Jericho and Chyna's alliance is that they ended up being co-champions due to two referees counting a pinfall during one of Jericho's defenses as the Intercontinental Champion. So basically a tag team with just one belt.
Next up was a tag team match for the WWF Tag Team Championship. New Age Outlaws defended the titles against Rock and Sock Connection, the team of The Rock and Mankind. In the earlier portion of the match, Al Snow interfered and attacked Mankind until Rock assaulted Snow. After chasing away Snow, Rock and Sock continued to fight the Outlaws.
After chasing away Snow, Rock and Sock continued to fight the Outlaws. Rock nearly won the titles when he performed a rock bottom on Billy Gunn. Rock attempted to pin Billy Gunn after the move, but Snow returned to interfere and broke the pinfall attempt.
As a result, the New Age Outlaws were disqualified, and Rock and Sock won the match. But since a title could only change hands by pinfall or submission, the Outlaws retained the Tag Team Championship.
After the match, an angry Rock performed a rock bottom on Road Dogg, and then hit Snow with a rock bottom, and followed it by performing a people's elbow on Snow. That's one way to keep the crowd happy.
The Rock had to do something before going back to the main event scene, since he ended up winning the Royal Rumble in 2000 and had a rivalry with Triple H later on.
The second to last match is a standard singles match for the World Wrestling Federation Heavyweight Championship, The Big Show versus the Big Boss Man.
Very strange, the main prize of the company wasn't in the main event. But I think it's because this feud wasn't really the best, and we can't blame the Big Show for it.
That's because Steve Austin had to be written off television to get neck surgery. The Big Boss Man himself isn't really a main eventer, but more of a decent mid-card act. But wow, 1999 was a strange year for the Boss Man. He was hung by The Undertaker in the Brood at WrestleMania, feeding Al Snow his dead dog, and then wrestling him in a Kennel from Hell match at Unforgiven, and feuding with the Big Show over the Big Show's late father. What a messy roller coaster.
Yeah! That's the strange thing about pro wrestling. Some people go through the wildest storylines to get screen time. Boss Man even did some grave robbing during the Big Show's dad's funeral. And the Big Show even tried to keep his dad's grave away as the Boss Man drove his car away with the casket. It's kind of sick but funny to some.
But the match itself wasn't so great. Boss Man's enforcer, Prince Albert, continuously interfered on his behalf throughout the match, prompting Big Show to perform a chokeslam on Albert through the Spanish announce table, and the crowd even chanted boring. Big Show defeated Boss Man to retain the WWF Championship title by pinning Boss Man after chokeslamming him. You can tell the Big Show himself felt disappointed in the match and possibly for being champion.
Good thing Triple H eventually won the WWF Championship from the Big Show in early January, a few weeks after the event. If that giant remained champion, we wouldn't have had the classics Hunter had with Mick Foley when he changed from Mankind to Cactus Jack.
Speaking of Triple H, it's time for the main event. Triple H versus the Grapefruit Guy Vince McMahon in a no-holds-barred match.
Where do we even begin with this feud? It went from the classic Steve Austin versus the Grapefruit Guy to Triple H versus the guy with the grapefruits.
In another long story, Charmy, 1999 was also the year Triple H was finally in the main event and briefly won the World Championship before the Grapefruit Guy himself beat him for the title and even sabotaged Stephanie McMahon and Test's on-screen wedding. He showed footage of a secret wedding of himself and a passed-out Stephanie in a drive-by wedding, thus making them a married couple. As for this match, there are stipulations.
If Vince won, Triple H and Stephanie's marriage would be annulled, but if Triple H won, he would receive a title shot at the WWF Championship.
We gotta feel bad for Test, because if he was married to Stephanie instead of Triple H, Test would be in the main event for years. Same with Chyna, since she was still in a real-life relationship with Triple H at the time and left the company on bad terms by 2001. In the early 2000s, Stephanie and Triple H dated and eventually married for real, thus making this storyline a lot more important and essential to their characters.
It's very obvious that Triple H maintained his main event status due to marrying the boss's daughter both in kayfabe and for real. It's mind-blowing looking back at where it started. Stephanie was still an innocent woman, but at the end of Armageddon 1999, she changed her demeanor and characteristics forever.
Oh, that is a very good point, but now let's discuss the match itself. Stephanie went to watch the match in the crowd. It was a war. Vince started by blinding Hunter's eyes with white dust. Vince was giving a lot of meaty punches, and they fought in the crowd.
Mankind interfered in the match and helped Vince by appearing in the ringside area with a shopping cart full of weapons for Vince to use. This allowed Vince to dominate much of the match.
Triple H and the Grapefruit Guy eventually took their vicious battle into the parking lot just outside the arena, in which Triple H and McMahon utilized the numerous vehicles in the parking lot as weapons. Even the crowd followed them.
They then came back to the arena, and there was one spot that took place. The Grapefruit Guy fell 30 feet into the trunk of a military Humvee stage prop. Even though he's a sick and twisted human being, Vince McMahon sure took high-risk moves like any other superstar.
After taking that nasty dive, the Grapefruit Guy was busted wide open, blood all over his face. Triple H then talked trash to Stephanie and continued to beat the crap out of Vince. Once the sledgehammer was pulled out, Vince kicked Triple H right in the balls and fought back again.
Vince tried to assault Triple H with Triple H's own sledgehammer, but Stephanie came out and stopped Vince from doing so. She decided to hit Triple H herself, but she lost her courage to attack him. This allowed Triple H to grab the weapon, and he attacked Vince with it to win the match.
After the match, Triple H tried to attack Stephanie with his sledgehammer, but then dropped the weapon. And the two embraced and kissed in the ring, revealing that it was an entire plan by both of them to take over the WWF.
As soon as Stephanie smiled, I knew she was an evil, conniving Jezebel. But when you think about it, it's justified since Vince did order The Undertaker to abduct Stephanie and attempted Taker to marry her before Steve Austin saved her earlier that summer.
There's a lot of plot points, but we better wrap up this video. If you want to see the entire Triple H and McMahon storyline, go to either Peacock or Netflix to check out the storyline, or just watch clips on YouTube. It's actually very enticing. It's also poetic that Triple H and Stephanie became a power couple, not only in storyline, but in real life too.
It planted the seeds for the McMahon-Helmsley regime to arrive, and it was a dominating storyline throughout the year of 2000. Even though Armageddon 1999 wasn't a masterpiece, it left a big impact on the fans thanks to Triple H and Stephanie being in cahoots.
Being in cahoots is very tricky and takes a lot of acting skills to fool those who are either gullible or unaware of bigger plots.
So there you have it, our review of Armageddon 1999, and boy, it was a decent show, but not the greatest that we'd watch again.
Yes, but it was still important, with it continuing its stories, even though there are a few flawed ones, like the one with the Big Show.
Just so we can do more wrestling reviews, maybe we should review a classic Big Four event like a WrestleMania or SummerSlam or even a Royal Rumble event, whichever one that's considered a masterpiece.
One more thing that's been confusing me for years is that The Undertaker was in the advertising for the event we just reviewed, but he was never at the show and wasn't seen in television since September that year.
Maybe the posters were made well before he was injured. Remember, The Undertaker went on hiatus and came back in May 2000 and was the American Badass.
Oh yeah, that was an awesome gimmick change. Being a biker was cool and was a fun way to freshen up the dead man's character.
All right, guys, what review should be made next?
There was a fan request for a movie review, and they want the Dreamcast/Adventure Crew to review the Spy Kids movies. I guess we better leave and tell our Sonic and the others.
I just hope it's just the original trilogy and not the fourth and fifth movie in its animated show. They were all hot garbage. But like you said, SBO, we must torture ourselves for the fans. Even the third Spy Kids movie was terrible, so not even the original trilogy was safe.
The 3D gimmick was trash looking back at the third movie. But we must go. See you later. 4Kids Chaotix.
Well, that's one way to set up the next video. Go ahead and give us a like, comment, subscribe, and share. Don't forget to click on the bell icon so you won't miss new videos. Check out the rest of our videos as well.
And spread the word. Follow us on TikTok and Instagram as well.
Stick around and stay tuned for more new videos. Whose turn is it to say it this time?
I think SBO should say it this time.
Very well. We'll see you all later. Peace out and rock on.
This has been 1CL Productions. The end.